Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Brendan Depa? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Brendan Depa was born on August 22, 2005, and lived in Florida. He was placed in foster care at the age of 5 months. His foster parents adopted him when he was 2 years old. The family lived in Riverview, Florida, which is 13 miles southeast of Tampa. From a young age, Brendan demonstrated an unstable mood, would yell and scream, and had violent outbursts. As he grew in size, it became more difficult for his adoptive parents to control him. Brendan was diagnosed with several mental disorders, including autism spectrum disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, intermittent explosive disorder, and ADHD. He was prescribed a variety of medications, but nothing seemed to be effective. Brendan went to school for a while, but his behavior was incompatible with a traditional school environment. In early 2019, Brendan found himself charged with 2 counts of battery after hitting children at a park. He was charged with 2 more counts of battery during an incident where his family called the police to their home. Brendan was out of control, and they needed help restraining him. A residential facility in South Carolina accepted Brendan, so he was sent there. The cost was about $13,000 a month. Initially, medical insurance covered it, but less than a year later, the payment stopped. Brendan was forced out of the facility and returned to Riverview, Florida. In November 2020, he was placed in a group home about 3 hours away in Palm Coast, Florida. This is about 30 miles north of Daytona Beach. Problems continued for Brendan in this environment. He attacked staff, destroyed property, and refused to follow directions. He had to be restrained multiple times. In the spring of 2021, Brendan was enrolled at Matanzas High School. Right away, there was trouble. He was suspended for 5 days for threatening students and pushing a teacher's aide. The aide was injured after falling down. After returning from suspension, Brendan was disciplined again because he harassed and intimidated school staff by approaching them in an aggressive manner and putting his finger in their faces. He said, "This is not physical aggression. I am not touching you." A month later, he spit on and threatened another student and was rewarded with a 1-day suspension. A month after this, Brendan grabbed a female employee and ignored orders to stop. The next day, he yelled at a teacher, left the classroom, and refused to follow directions. A few days later, he once again left the classroom and ignored commands. As he was leaving, he laughed and said, "Don't tell me that. I hate it." In the fall of 2022, Brendan's behavior was no better. He was rewarded with a 1-day suspension for threatening to punch his paraprofessional in the face and for spitting on her. By this point, Brendan was 6'6" and weighed 270 pounds. Staff members of the high school were unable to control him, and the bad behavior continued. He found himself suspended 2 more times for physically charging at people and pushing another student. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On February 21, 2023, at about 10 a.m., Brendan was in school and accompanied by his 57-year-old teacher's aide, Joan Nadish. A substitute teacher asked Joan to have Brendan put away his Nintendo Switch gaming device. Brendan complied with the command, but brought it out again. Joan asked him to pack it in his belongings as they moved to the next classroom. When they arrived, the teacher wanted to know what was going on with the game. Joan and the teacher had a discussion about Brendan bringing games to school. During this discussion, Brendan became angry and screamed obscenities at Joan. After she walked toward the classroom door, Brendan spit on her. Right before leaving the classroom, Joan said, "Well, that's an assault." Brendan followed Joan out of the classroom and charged at her. Just before Brendan made contact, Joan turned around and faced him. Brendan violently pushed Joan to the floor. He then kicked Joan and started punching her. Approximately 15 strikes were delivered by Brendan in total. Several workers intervened to protect Joan as Brendan continued the attack, screamed obscenities, spit on her, and threatened to kill her. Eventually, Brendan was pulled off Joan and placed under arrest. He told the police that he would return and kill Joan. The attack was devastating for Joan. She sustained myriad injuries, including 5 broken ribs, a concussion, and herniated discs in her back. She went on to have symptoms like headaches, dizziness, vision and hearing impairments, and cognitive difficulties. As far as her mental health, Joan developed post-traumatic stress disorder and had panic attacks. Brendan was suspended for 5 days, but he never returned to school. He was arrested and charged as an adult with aggravated battery on an education employee. About 8 months later, on October 30, 2023, Brendan pleaded no contest to that charge, which meant he was facing up to 30 years in prison. The judge indicated that Brendan had a high probability of violent conduct in the future, yet sentenced him to only 5 years in prison, followed by 15 years of probation. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. Brendan's mother has talked about what he was like when he was young. She implied that he would overreact to stimuli. For example, if he saw something funny, he would be hysterical. If something he witnessed was upsetting, he would cry excessively. Brendan would frequently become overwhelmed and have a meltdown. He was hypersensitive to sounds and textures, had rigid thinking, and demonstrated magical thinking. Any type of noise or commotion could upset him. He was irritated by a wide variety of stimuli, including stickers on bananas, rubber bands, and the sound of flies. And he thought of characters in his video games as real. Item number 2. Before he was sentenced to prison, Brendan was evaluated by mental health clinicians. There were some disagreements among the professionals, but in general, here is what they found. Brendan was not intellectually disabled. His intelligence was actually above average. He had good abstract reasoning and good insight into his own mental health. He performed better in environments that were structured and had a routine. Brendan was able to control his behavior. His level of aggression was not proportional to events he experienced, and he was dangerous. He understood the difference between right and wrong, and his autism spectrum disorder did not explain his violent behavior. One clinician was troubled by Brendan's inappropriate laughter episodes and his claim that he heard voices telling him to attack people. Item number 3. Brendan had an individualized education program, or IEP, when he was in school. It sounds like his high school didn't really follow it too well. There was a long list of stimuli associated with Brendan becoming violent. So these were things that the staff was supposed to be looking out for. These triggers included people making negative or corrective statements to him, discussing his inappropriate behaviors in front of him or his peers, and his video game. Essentially, no one was to reprimand or redirect Brendan out of fear that he might explode and severely beat them. Staff members were supposed to walk on eggshells around him as they constantly worried about a vicious attack at any moment. This sounds like a terrible plan. By giving in to Brendan every time, the staff members were taking the risk that his destructive behavior would be reinforced. Brendan learned that people were afraid of him, and he could do whatever he wanted. There's no functional way for a school to deal with a student who is so easily triggered that restricting the usage of his video game could result in violence. The victim in this case, Joan, had only been a teacher's aide for about 2 years and did not have any special training to work with students with disabilities. After the attack, Joan indicated she was never told about Brendan's disabilities. She was never informed that his individualized education program stated not to reprimand or correct him in front of others, and that his gaming device was a known trigger. Item number 4. Many people were shocked when Brendan was only sentenced to 5 years in prison. They viewed Brendan as a monster who might eventually kill someone. His victim, Joan, said that Brendan was a danger to society and needed to be sentenced appropriately. Other people believed that Brendan should have been dealt with in the juvenile justice system. He should have never been sent to prison at all. For example, his adoptive mother was worried that Brendan would die in prison. This brings me to the question, should Brendan have been sentenced to more time in prison? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that Brendan needed more prison time, starting with the factors supporting this theory. Brendan perpetrated a vicious attack that could have resulted in death. it is possible that his victim will never recover fully from the physical and mental damage. In the years leading up to the attack, Brendan found himself disciplined many times due to violence and other troubling behavior. He was repeatedly warned to stop attacking people. Mental health experts said that Brendan knew the difference between right and wrong. They also indicated that his autism spectrum disorder did not explain his violent behavior. Moving to the factors contradicting the theory that Brendan needed more prison time, Brendan had an individualized education program which was not followed. After the attack, the high school determined that his violent conduct was a manifestation of his disabilities, which of course is different than what the mental health clinicians determined later. It was not Brendan's fault that he had multiple mental disorders. When considering all the evidence, do I think Brendan should have received more prison time? Yes. A 5-year sentence does not represent justice and does not adequately protect the public. Brendan has repeatedly demonstrated that he will not stop being violent. I believe a 15-year sentence would have been reasonable. While in jail awaiting his sentence, Brendan did not act out. One could argue that being incarcerated is the best thing that could have happened to him. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Brendan Depa received inadequate treatment for his behavioral problems because society does not have the resolve to address mental disorders. His adoptive parents tried to get him help, but the available resources were inadequate. When Brendan grew physically large and strong, nobody could control him. He learned that he could intimidate and attack people without meaningful consequences. He attacked Joan because he was angry and wanted revenge on her. His mental disorders mitigated his culpability, but they did not eliminate it. Furthermore, the debate about the role his mental illness played is somewhat academic when he continues to pose a danger to society. Protecting the public is primary. After Brendan attacked Joan, he said he would kill her. I don't think he was lying about his intent. If Brendan goes on to commit serious crimes in the future, some people will say, predicting this was impossible. There were no red flags. I would argue that Brendan has provided nothing but warning signs. The problem is, as he was creating red flags, many of those around him were waving white flags. He needed people to stand up and deliver harsh consequences for his unacceptable behavior, which is exactly what a longer prison sentence would have communicated. Those are my thoughts in the case of Brendan Depa. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They consistently generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.